Welcome along to Betting Weekly Extra Time European Edition. You're with Dan Roebuck alongside me, Steve Wyss and James Eastham. Challenging week for bettors last week, Steve. We had a lot of big games, a lot of derbies. We were trailing it extensively, of course. We had El Clasico, Derby d'Italia, that crazy 4-4. Paris Saint-Germain winning with some controversial decisions. I mean, you said, it is a cliche, but, Fawn book out the window and all that. And look, when you get 0-4s and 4-4s and wild red cards, this is why bettors should tread carefully when it comes to some of the bigger games.
Yeah, there was some rather surprising outcomes, but I've said it before with these local derbies or fierce rivalries, anything can happen. Red cards can fly. It was a disappointing weekend. I think I showed a loss of -2.5 units. I could have lost even more. I nearly had Lyon as the 2-unit pick. So, yeah, it's one of those weekends. I don't think I could have got much more out of it, Dan. I looked across the results in general across the leagues, and just one of those. Really got to pick yourself up and move on again. I got close with the SGP again, but that still continues to elude me. One day I'll win an SGP. But at least, the 2-unit pick stayed unbeaten for me.
Yes, it did, and we'll get to that shortly. But it's one of those weeks, and we've had some very good winning weeks and consistent winning weeks. I don't know if it's easier to sort of go again, James, but this is where the mental side of the game, and it's that great intangible with betting and investing. It's not necessarily that your picks are bad or whatever, but when you lose, it's how you react to it and how you come back.
Yeah, there were some great games, weren't there, last weekend? If you think about how those big derbies and fierce rivalries played out with a 4-4 in Italy and the Barcelona 4-0 win and a big win for PSG. So it's great entertainment. But yeah, from a betting point of view, if you have a losing week, it is hard. Some people like to take a week off or take stock, certainly. I think the important thing is to remember what you were doing right. Don't overreact mentally to a bad week. That's certainly the case with us on the show, in the sense we're in profit for the season. We've actually got a really good profit. We know where that's come from. It's come from consistently doing the right thing. So it's really about continuing to do the right things. And with our show, obviously, we've got a structure here that we've got with the 2-unit plays, the 1-unit plays. That helps, I think. You've got a structure. You're not chasing anything or being daft. And it's just about staying cool, staying calm, and continuing to do the right things.
We're going to start in Germany this week because overs has been brilliant for Steve, and Steve alluded to the fact that it was a push for the 2-unit play with the overs last week, which it was. But there is still value to be had, we believe. Wolfsburg, Augsburg is Steve's 2-unit play here. Wolfsburg are minus money favourites just. Augsburg plus 265, draw plus 280 here. The half goal line is 2.5. But the more natural line is 2.75, and that's where we go. Bundesliga, Steve, it's still a league for overs. It's still profitable if you're just level staking the over 2.5, over 3.5. But as we've talked about week on week, the market is catching up. But you can still find a little bit of value when it comes to these overs bets in Germany. Last week I pushed, I think after, was it 5 consecutive 2U plays on Germany overs that cash? So look, we're massively in profit for this. Talk us through this one.
Yeah, well, I'm just sticking with the same strategy, which has been working really well for me. And it's like every single week, one of these goal lines just falls into my lap, it's lower than it should be. And this has happened again this week, and it's Wolfsburg, Augsburg, over 2.75 goals at -127 at the time of recording. I nearly just made this a straight over 2.5 at -157. So for those who want to just play it simple and straight, then there's no problem with that at all. And I'm just wondering why this goal line's so low, because I think based on the results of the teams, it should be at minimum 3, possibly even 3.25. And we're going into this world of sort of underlying metrics and stuff now and expected goals. And one thing I'll say about both teams are overachieving in front of goal and underachieving defensively. Now, the way the modern trend goes, there might be some bettors out there or some analysts who are waiting for these trends to reverse and saying that these teams can't keep overachieving with scoring goals, and at some point the defences should naturally tighten up. But, Augsburg, all 8 games of them have gone over 2.5 this season. Wolfsburg, I've cashed on them a few times recently with the 2-unit play. Yes, they had a 0-0 against St. Pauli last week. But St. Pauli are a bit of an unusual side in that they are very negative and defensive and can't score goals. So I'm just writing that game off. It's a completely different fixture. So it's a question of, how much do you look at expected goals and the underlying metrics? Do we maybe overthink it too much? There's a side in Sweden this year, Västerås, underachieved in front of goal by 20 goals. They were third in the expected points table. They've just been relegated. What's the use of these metrics if you're not converting it on the actual field? Yeah, on the field, Augsburg are scoring some goals. They're conceding a lot of goals, and the same can be said for Wolfsburg. Even if perhaps the metrics might think that they might revert, I can't get away from this over 2.75 goal line. It should be higher, and I'm just sticking with the strategy if it's working for me. 2-unit play. I'm really confident that we can get at least 3 goals in the game.
I completely agree with what you just said there. And there are some models that will sort of do 60% expected goals, 40% actual goals, or some sort of combination of the two. Because, there are certain teams, and in England, you look at Man United this season, you look at Brighton for a long time, that just never to perform to their figures. And at one stage, you've just got to turn around and say, well, this isn't working. I can't just keep expecting some sort of regression and bet that way. And it's a really good point. That's Wolfsburg against Augsburg. We're sticking Germany for Dortmund Leipzig, which is an interesting one. I noted down that Dortmund have got an awful lot of players out here. Now, Steve, your 1-unit play here is on Leipzig. When we were talking earlier this week about 2-unit, was this the 2-unit play that just didn't make the cut? Is this it? You have to explain to viewers because they're not privy to our WhatsApp groups. Was it?
What a fixture. Yeah, what a fixture. Dortmund, Leipzig. I could have had the 2-unit play on this, the hot dog, the 1-unit, whatever, because I really like Leipzig in this situation. And the only question is what type of bet I'm going to take on them. They're plus 195 on the money line, which is just short of hot dog territory for us.
Would it have been your hot dog at 2-1?
Yes, 100%. This would have been the hot dog. If this was plus 200... In fact, I could have been naughty and lied and just said, it was plus 200 when I put it down, but I'm too straight and too honest for that. So I've said before, the amount of bets between like plus 175 and plus 195, there's so many good ones that we can't have as a hot dog anymore. So I had to make the decision, do I go tie no bet? Do I go straight on the money line? And I still haven't fully decided really. But yeah, it's going to be tie no bet on Leipzig at plus 118 here. There'll be some out there that might even look at them on the plus 0.25 Asian handicap because personally, I think that they should be the favourites here. I actually make them plus 150 favourites according to my calculations. And on the Tino bet line, I make them about minus 130. So we're getting tons of value here. Main reason, I think Dortmund are not a very well coached side at the minute. Nuri Sahin's come in and I think he struggled. If we look at the identity they've got, they've not really got one yet, and a lot of their better results have been when their individuals have performed, which is that happens. Dortmund have got a decent squad, and players like Guirassy and so and such can make things happen, but they've also got a lot of injuries. I think potentially up to 8 or 10 ruled out. There's a few injuries on both sides of the field actually. Javi Simons is probably not going to see the field till 2025. Lois Openda's doubtful, but he should play. I think he'll be at least on the bench here. There was a doubt over the goalkeeper, Gulacki, but he is going to be fit. They've got a good backup anyway. But one thing we know with Leipzig, we know how they operate. They've got a Pacific system, Pacific style, and they are, at the minute, for me, they're far better coached than Dortmund. So I don't see them losing. I think there's a good chance they win. I actually think they could do a number on Dortmund here. We could see a really bad beat for Dortmund. The pressure's on Nuri Sahin. I could see him getting sacked at some point this season. He's hiding behind these injuries, but I'm not sure how much longer that can continue for. Dortmund should not be the clear favourite in this game. So it is a 1-unit official pick on RB Leipzig, Tino bet, plus 118. And if you like the money line, I would not want to put off anyone backing them around about the 2-1 mark.
There you go. Leipzig, big positive away at Dortmund, 1:30 Saturday, that game. Steve, you've got a couple of Germany leans for us here. Again, you're looking at the overs markets for those that like to play. One on Saturday, one on Sunday.
Yeah, well, these are the other two on my shortlist for the overs for Germany. Holstein Kiel against Heidenheim, over 2.75 goals. And the other one is on Sunday, Borussia Mönchengladbach against Werder Bremen, over 3.25 goals. Now, why did these not make official picks? Mostly because I think the actual lines are more fairer. Certainly the Gladbach game, that's right where you would expect it, 3.25. Still think it goes quite a bit over because of the way that both teams are playing. So if you're looking for a nice easy over on Sunday to add to a parlay or something, or just take the main line, I think Gladbach, Werder Bremen, you could do a lot worse than that. And then Kiel against Heidenheim. My record on Heidenheim games is not very good, so that's another reason why it didn't quite make the cut. But Kiel need a result here. They're winless, and I still think Heidenheim are one of the worst 5 or 6 teams in the league. So they've got to be targeting this game. And Holstein Kiel have conceded a lot of goals this season, so that in itself might make this a bit of a shootout. I just think both teams will fancy the win, and almost one of my sort of theory games in a way. This one would have been probably closer to an official pick because, again, the line is low at 2.75 when it should, I think, be a 3 line, really. So, again, a couple of overs there that you might be interested in if you do like betting on the goals in Germany, which is very profitable this season.
Yeah, is that pretty high, 3.25 for the Gladbach Bremen game? Do you think?
I think it's fair. I think it's a fair line. I don't think it should be any lower. Certainly, obviously, it could be an argument for 3.5, really, especially with Bremen away games. So, right on the mark.
Yeah, a couple of lanes, a couple of overs. I mean, look, overs has been massively profitable when it comes to the Bundesliga, no doubt about that. And we're looking to ride the train again this weekend. Let's get to Italy. Bring James in here for some plays. And an interesting lean, which I'm going to challenge James on, but it's only a lean. We're going to get to the hot dog first of all. Torino against Fiorentina here. This is on Sunday. Both teams are playing tonight. Incidentally, we're recording Thursday lunchtime in the UK here. But as it stands, James, La Viola, who are favourites to win this game at plus 133, Torino plus 215. Draw plus 225. I mean, they're scoring for fun. Only Atalanta and Inter have scored more. Obviously, that could change by the time that this goes out. So I presume we're looking for goals for your hot dog play.
Yeah, we are looking for goals here, Dan. Steve's mentioned there on his 2-unit picket in Germany, and he's leaned that some of the goal lines look wrong across the European markets today. I think that's going to be the theme of the show here because I looked at this game, Torino-Fiorentina. I think the goal line is wrong here. I'm going high goals. The hot dog pick is over 3 goals, which is available at plus 205. I could not believe it was as big as plus 205 when you look at the games that these two sides have played so far this season. As you say, Dan, they're both playing tonight, so there'll be an extra game for each team by the time this match takes place. So we've got 18 matches as we're recording that they've played in Serie A this season. If you look at those 18 matches, 9 of them have had more than 3 goals. So that's 50% of all the games they've played have had more than 3 goals. 3 of them have had exactly 3 goals, which would have meant with this pick you'd get your stakes back, and only 6 have lost. So you're looking at a 50% win rate across their matches so far, and the market is giving you plus 205 on the game having over 3 goals. So I was really surprised when I saw it. I thought the goal line would be completely different here. I think it's a great opportunity to back high goals in a game between two sides who are scoring plenty of goals. I've mentioned Torino before, said that when they face the top teams in Serie A, and Fiorentina at the moment are one of those top teams, they actually tend to go for it. They've scored goals and created chances when they played against the better sides. And you've said it yourself, Dan, about Fiorentina. They're scoring that many goals at the moment. I don't see why they would do anything other than be positive here. As we're recording, they've scored 15 goals in their last 3 matches. And I think what's crucial about those goals that Fiorentina have been scoring is they've been getting plenty away from home. They got 4 away from home against St. Gallen in Europe, which I think was a game Steve tipped up on our daily show. And they got 6 away from home against Lecce in their last away match. So if you're Fiorentina going into this game, you're away from home against a side below you in the table, and you've been scoring stacks of goals on the road. I think they'll be really positive here. So, yeah, looking through all the prices on the goals in Serie A this weekend, this was a standout for me. And I think that hot dog pick, as Steve has said, our dividing line is plus 200. Our hot dogs have got to be over 200. I've had a quick look as we're recording. It's still plus 205 now. So well worth taking. That's Torino, Fiorentina. It's over 3 goals on the Asian goal line at plus 205.
Serie A averaging, and again, time of recording, 2.82 goals, higher than the last 3 seasons, over 2.5. Level staking every single game this season. Your return on investment is over 10%, and over 3.5 is over 8%. I mean, it's not caught up as the Bundesliga has, James. Do you think it's just that perception with Serie A that, if you've been in the game as long as we have, you just always think unders with Italy, and therefore the market might be a little slower to react, whereas in Germany and England it sort of reacts a little bit quicker. Is that fair?
I think it is fair. Yeah, I think anybody watching, random Serie A matches on the weekend would see just how open they are. Lots of pace about the way the teams are playing. Really open at the back sometimes. Teams going for that second goal, that third goal. Away teams looking to set the tempo from the start rather than being defensive from the start, which, as you say, is probably what people still think of stereotypically. So, yeah, I think the market can be slow. I think we've seen it before, haven't we, where you can have leagues who've got really clear trends on goals for a big block of time, and then it changes, and you've got those 1 or 2 seasons maybe where it opens up for bettors because the market's not reacted. So certainly the eye test, watching a lot of Serie A matches this season, really entertaining games, really open. And I think, as I say, certainly with our hot dog pick there, the goal lines haven't really reacted to that.
Certainly, profit and loss suggests that is the case. We like over 3 Asian line, plus 205 for James Hot Dog, the big price runner of the week in Italy for James. Staying in Italy, just for a lead. Now, this is game of the week. It's 6:30 on Sunday in the morning in the US Eastern. So you've got to get up. I mean, it's well worth getting up for if you can watch this, and it'll be streamed on the BetRivers app as well. This is Atalanta, who are away at Napoli here. Now, Atalanta top an awful lot of the metrics in Serie A. Top on goals scored, expected goals, I think expected points, shots on targets, big chances created and missed for what it's worth, and touches in the opposition box. So therefore, James, when they travel to top of the table Napoli, we've got to find some way to bet Atalanta. We're going to fade Napoli. We're going to go the Asian line Atalanta. Team totals, everything, aren't we?
No, we're not. No, I mean, I listen, it's a lean. It's not a pick, but I think Napoli are the pick here. And I take the point. You're right. Atalanta are doing really well on a lot of the metrics that people would look at ahead of this game. It goes back to the point Steve made in the sense that, how much do you believe these metrics? They are useful. They obviously give you...
backlash has started here against XG and the underlying metrics. Steve started it. Sorry.
Well, it's interesting because, those shot on target stats and XG stats, I think they are really revealing actually about how teams play. And I mean, I messaged Steve about a month ago, I think, about Atalanta, saying I just could not get a read on them. Because they'd started the season quite inconsistently. You could see what they were trying to do. They weren't actually delivering it in games. That has sort of changed now. You have to say Atalanta go into this game in really good form. They've had 4 straight wins in Serie A. They've climbed the table. They're up to 3rd now as we're recording going into this game. So, there's plenty of positives about Atalanta and their form. The way I look at it, I still think Napoli at home here at even money, they're plus 100 to win the game. I think that's a really big price on Napoli at home, given that their form is even better than Atalanta's. Now, you've got the underlying stats, which are obviously important, but if you just look at the way that Napoli have been playing, they've been absolutely fantastic over the last sort of 6 or 7 weeks. I think I flagged them up last weekend on the Serie A outright market at plus 300, which I thought was a great price. And since then, they've gone on and won 2-0 away to Milan in midweek, which was a huge win. I know Milan are not firing on all cylinders, but it's still a really, really big win. And it just adds to this form that Napoli have got now. They're unbeaten since the opening day of the season. They've won 8 out of 9 now in Serie A. And one thing which has gone slightly under the radar about this fantastic run that Napoli are on is the clean sheets. I think they're on 6 clean sheets in their last 7 matches now. So I think what you've got here is, yes, some form from Atalanta and lots of really good underlying stats. But I think what they're meeting here is comfortably the best side in Serie A at the moment. No reason why I think that would dip from Napoli this weekend. So it's going to be a tough game for them. But I did feel that they were going to be minus money here. I was fairly sure they'd be around minus 120, maybe even minus 130, just because their own form is so strong. So when I saw that Napoli are available at plus 100, I was like, you know what, that is bigger than I expected. So it's a lean, it's not a pick, because I am slightly concerned about those underlying Atalanta stats, I've got to say. But I think Napoli would be disappointed if they weren't the better side here. And I think Napoli would be disappointed if they didn't win. So I think plus 100 on the league leaders at home is worth having a look at.
I mean, Steve, we always look for angles in, and the sort of contemporary better will look at XG and an awful lot of stats that are available. But, newsflash, bookmakers have all this data and more, don't they? I mean, it is hard, and you've got to look beyond the obvious. And the obvious these days, to a certain extent, is underlying metrics. You can't just look at it, as you mentioned before, as James just said there.
I think we are starting to get into this debating world now of, how much are we trusting our eyes? How much are we trusting the actual results? And sort of more baseline stats like shots, things like that. And then how much are we looking at like expected goals against, field tilt, things, whatever. There's so many things now that we can look at, and but with expected goals, this year I've been done a few times by teams that have overachieved, underachieved. Keeps happening with certain teams with trends, and I think at certain stages you've got to almost forget about that and work based on what's actually going on the field. And in this particular game, who are you really trusting when? Say in a clutch moment, it would be Napoli, really, wouldn't it? I mean, look at Atalanta against, was it Celtic the other day? I mean, was expected goals over 3 and it was 0-0.
Yeah.
Okay, that was maybe a bit of a freak game, but yeah, I think when push comes to shove,
Schmeichel the Celtic keeper these days? Did he have a bit of a worldie that game? I can't remember.
He made a few saves, but yeah, I think in this instance, I would agree with the lean in that Napoli probably find a way to win.
I can just imagine the Napoli analysts knocking on Antonio Conte's door and saying, "Yeah, but boss, look, Atalanta touches in the opposition box, boss." And Conte just giving him a stare and going, "Yeah, on your way." Let's get to France, shall we? Got some really good plays and analysis from the boys here. We're going to start with James's 2U pick, which is Sunday 11, Auxerre against Rennes. Auxerre plus 235, Rennes plus 112. The draw plus 255 here. France is also showing a profit for over 2.5 and over 3.5 bettors this season. And these two teams are certainly added to those numbers positively. So therefore, we're looking at another overs play. This is your 2-unit play, James.
Yes, overs in the Auxerre versus Rennes game in France. The over in question being over 2.75 goals, which is available at minus 107. So as long as there are 3 goals in this game, you're going to make a profit. If there are 3 goals, exactly, you'll win with half your stakes. And if there are 4 or more goals, then you'll win with all of your stakes. It's another case of the goal line being in the wrong place for me, this, Dan. I thought this was really low. These two sides have been involved in a huge number of high-scoring matches this season. I think it's 14 out of 18 games involving Auxerre and Rennes have had 3 goals or more. If you look at the relevant home stats and away stats, that's Auxerre at home, as they are this weekend, and Rennes away. I think it's 7 out of 8 games have had 3 goals or more. So every which way you look at the top line stats, this should be an overs game. I thought the goal line at about minus 107 would have been set at 3 goals. It's not. It's set at over 2.75 goals. So for me, that makes it a great opportunity. And I really like these games where you've got the stronger side away from home, and that's the case with Rennes, and they've got plenty to prove. Rennes have not been in great form this season. They're really desperate to get points on the board, and they know they're much better going forward than they are defensively. They also know that Auxerre are defensively fairly wobbly as well, so I can't see any other approach here from Rennes other than going for it. They have to be trying to win against teams like Auxerre, whether they're home or away. And I think it will make it a really open match. Auxerre at home have been great to watch. They've done really well at home. Auxerre are likely to be in a relegation battle this season. If they're going to stay up, it will be their home form that keeps them up. It's only a small stadium at Auxerre, but they get really, really good support. And watching their games, they're taking chances at home. They're looking to outscore the opposition at home. There's no point in them trying to keep it tight at home because they're just not defensively good enough. So I think it'll be a really entertaining watch. I think you've got 2 teams here who are better attacking than they are defending. And as I say, those top line stats on the goals are really strongly pointing towards overs here. So I think it will be an open game. I think, as I say, the goal line looks too low to me. I wouldn't be surprised if the price on over 2.75 goals shortens a little bit. But as I say, it's minus 107 at the moment. I'd honestly take that at over 3 goals, which was what I was expecting. So I think it's a great opportunity here to get on overs in a league where, as you say, Dan, there have been loads of goals in League One, and these two teams specifically have been delivering. So that's the pick. It's over 2.75 goals, and it's available at minus 107.
My note on this game was that Auxerre are finding a bit of form and their underlying metrics are better than their league position. But
can I just add something?
Metrics this week. Go on, Steve.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things to say about this game, actually. By the way, well done to Auxerre last week. I thought they deserved something at Lyon. They actually, for what it's worth, had a better XG than Lyon, as we're talking about this round. But my referee last week, Benoit Bastien, gave a penalty late in the Lens game. Now, he's not he's not doing a match this week, but he is the VAR ref for this game.
He's in the booth.
He's in the booth. Gaël Anguilla is the main ref who he actually gave 2 penalties against Brest in a match recently. Brest against Saint-Etienne, I think it was. Anyway, have a look in that Bet Rivers specials again here. Penalty awarded, yes. You could look at some goal scorers here. Kalim Wendo is now on penalty duty for Rennes, and he's plus 240 to score at any time. I mean, he could very easily score from open play as it is. And the Auxerre penalty taker, I believe, is going to be a defender called Jubal, who, now he did miss his last penalty, so whether he stays on it, I don't know, but he is the captain, so I'm hoping he pulls his weight. He is plus 600 to score at any time. And I think that's not a bad price for a designated penalty taker in a game where we may well get the referee called over to the screen.
And if you're, I should say on Jubal as well, Steve, you're right. If you're worried about him missing a penalty again and not scoring it, I think he's actually a really big price just to have over 0.5 shots on target. He's 340 or something like that. So, yeah, he's a really good shout on him.
Let's get Steve's hot dog. Saint Etienne against Strasbourg, which is Saturday. Saint Etienne plus 270 here. Strasbourg are minus money favourites. We've seen a goal line from James of 2.75, but for the hot dog, obviously we're going to have to go fairly big in France, but these are teams that suggest that it is on, but the line is high, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, this would have been a one-unit play for over 3 Asian goals if I could have gone with the hot dog on Leipzig, but instead I'm going on over 3.75 Asian goals at plus 220. If you just like the straight plus 3.5 goals, that's at plus 175, and that's perfectly good as well. I just don't see anything other than a shootout. Main reason is, well, 2 reasons. Strasbourg are really good at the minute offensively. They've had 9 different goal scorers this season and 9 different assist providers. So it's everyone's kind of providing goals in this team and scoring them. Andre Santos seems to be a revelation for them. Could be one of the next big young talents. So I think Strasbourg could very well cover this goal line all on their own, or certainly score at least 3 goals on their own. Because Saint Etienne's defence is just not good enough at this level. You know, we mentioned, I mean, they lost the match 8-0 this season. And I think I said the next week, watch out for them sort of being more defensive and more, etc., cagey. I don't think they're capable of playing that way. Even if they wanted to play defence and just say, you know, let's tighten things up this week, get a 0-0 draw, they're not capable of doing it. So they've got to be looking at sort of their goal scoring to save them. And they do have a Georgian to watch out for, Davidashvili. I mean, by the way, Georgia, I think, have got some great talents up and coming all across the field. There's one at Atlanta United now as well who's caught my eye in America. But unlike Strasbourg, only 3 different goal scorers for Saint Etienne this season, but Davidashvili has scored 5 of them. That's pretty good in a poor team. Sissoko is always a threat for them up front as well. So I do think Saint Etienne get on the scoreboard. Strasbourg haven't kept many clean sheets this season. I think the only one was against Marseille, where they had a slightly different game plan compared to normal. So I think there's screaming goals. I think it certainly should go over 2.5, I think. And, you know, with the hot dog pick here, over 3.75 goals at plus 320, plus 220. as long as we get 4 goals, we're winning something. And I think that's possible because both teams are very high in the over 3.5 goals table this season. 6 out of 9 Strasbourg games. I think it's 5 out of 9 for St Etienne. The style both teams play suggests goals. Really dodgy defense in the case of one team. So very happy to be back in the high goal line in this game.
That's a hot dog. Over 3.75 goals at Etienne Strasbourg. We've got James's 1U play in France as well. It's Toulouse against Reims, which is Sunday early at about 9. Toulouse, just over even money favourite. We opposed Toulouse with a lean last week. This week it's an official play that we're opposing them with, James, with a Rennes side that have lost their last 2. I don't know why I'm coming for James this week. He's only the handicapper that's got the most profit across all of our shows. But, you're going to have to convince me with this one as well.
Yeah, so I'm back in Rennes here, Dan, on the Asian handicap, away from home against Toulouse. Rennes plus 0.25 goal start is available at plus 107. It's a fair point. Anybody that watched Toulouse last weekend, when I opposed them, would think this pick is wrong and that Toulouse are actually a really good side. They won, for those that didn't see it, 3-0 last weekend away at Montpellier. Montpellier had a new manager in charge. I thought that might inspire them. It didn't at all. The reason I wouldn't stake too much on that Toulouse win is that it was, by some distance, the single worst team performance I've actually seen in Ligue 1 by any side this season from Montpellier last weekend. I thought they were really poor. There were some mitigating circumstances. Their team news was really bad in defence, and that was definitely a factor. But I wouldn't get too excited about Toulouse if you just watched how they played last weekend. And I think their price this weekend at home, plus 104, it is definitely too short. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first reason is that Reims are 5 points ahead of them in the table at the moment. I think they are the better of these two sides. I think that Reims will finish above Toulouse in the table this season. The second is that Reims, yes, they've had a couple of defeats recently, but away from home, they've generally been pretty good this season. I think they've won or drawn 3 of their 4 away games. So I think being away from home here against a weaker side is actually the type of game that suits them really well. And the biggest factor for me on opposing Toulouse here is something I've mentioned before on the show this season. It's just how poor they are at home. Toulouse at home have got a really, really poor win rate. They've won only 1 of 5 at home this season. They won only 3 of 17 at home last season. So under their current manager, who took over at the beginning of last season, they've only won 4 out of 22 home matches. It's remarkable when you watch them, and it showed last weekend away from home just how much space they had and how much more comfortable and confident they seem to be. At home, despite having really good support in recent seasons, Toulouse just can't get the wins on the board. So on that basis alone, I think plus 104 for Toulouse to win is too short. I don't think that price takes into account just how they struggle at home to win matches. And I think Reims are a little bit better than they've shown in their last 2 games. I don't think they're going to keep losing matches as they have done recently because there's a bit more about them than that. So I think this is the time to get on them, actually. I think they're underrated here. Maybe because they have lost a couple of games recently. Maybe because Toulouse had that big win last weekend. But I think the longer-term form and the longer-term quality of these two sides favours Reims. So they're my pick. On the Asian handicap, plus 0.25 at plus 107. And just very quickly on the pronunciation here, I'm calling them Reims, which is what they're called. Anybody looking at the coupon might think, who? What's he talking about? It's actually spelt Reims. It looks like Reims, but they're called Reims. So it's Toulouse versus Reims, and Reims are my pick on the game.
Same game parlay. James is on duty this week. We've got a couple of leans from Steve still to come as well. The same game parlay is Nantes against Marseille. We've got 3 elements here. It does include a shot on target as well for those waiting for James's shot on target play. And we'll get Steve's thoughts on the SGP as well. And indeed, he's got a lean on the game. So give us your 3 elements here, James. Talk us through your SGP.
Yeah, so it's not Marseille, and all 3 of them are, well, 2 of them are specifically on Marseille in this game. 1 of them is on the game in general. So the SGP's first part is on over 0.5 Marseille goals. They were really poor last weekend, as I said, against PSG. They lost 3-0. The game was over after about half an hour. There was a red card, which was a factor in that. But I think that defeat and the manner of the defeat means that we'll see a really pumped up Marseille here. I know Steve's going to talk about that as well. So I'd be really surprised if they fail to score here. Over 0.5 Marseille goals for me is a good shout. My second pick is a shot on target pick. It's on Eli Wahi, who should be starting in the number 9 position for Marseille. He has struggled this season, but I think there's more to come from Eli Wahi. In the previous game away from home that they won comfortably against Montpellier, I thought it was arguably his best performance of the season. I think he's looking fairly sharp, and he's up against a moderate Nantes defence here. So not backing him to score, just backing him to have over 0.5 shots on target. That's my second part. And my third part, which is partly down to Steve, is this one. It's under 12.5 corners on the game. Marseille have been having fewer corners than people might realise this season. It's something Steve flagged up a couple of weeks ago. So I put in under 12.5 corners. It's a fairly high line. It would have paid out in 14 out of 18 games so far this season involving both of these teams. So very happy to set that line high and put that in the parlay. These 3 picks will pay out at plus 195.
There you go. Those are the selections for James's same game parlay. Steve, you've got Marseille thoughts. Happy with that SGP first and foremost, and talk us through your Marseille lean.
It's just as well James is on SGP duty because I can't get an SGP winner, can I? So I just think the corners again. I've just looked here. Nantes most corners are plus 115. That would not be a surprise if that hit. There was only one corner in the second half of Le Classique last week. I know it was a training exercise in the second half, but one corner was ridiculous. You watch when Marseille get into, even last week when they're on the break, they just cut inside all the time. It's crazy. I like Marseille to rebound here. They were terrible last week. They've got to put in a better performance. I think straight on the money line to win the game around about evens, minus 104 wouldn't be a bad bet here. For some reason, Marseille are a lot better away from home this season. It might be the fixtures. They're starting to get into unbackable range at home, sadly, at the Velodrome. But away from home, it's worked a lot better. Just that one defeat at Strasbourg, which I think the reason they lost that game was a specific game plan, which was employed by Strasbourg that day. I don't really see Nantes being able to do that. I think they'll offer a threat, will Nantes. Marseille maybe win and both teams scoring could be worth a look as well. But I expect a rebound from Marseille. And Eli Wahi, I agree with James. There's big things to come from him.
Yeah, he's done this before this season. Obviously, I bet him once on the shot on target mark, or was it any time goal scorer market? Then he missed about 8 chances.
Yes.
So I'm never including him again in anything. But that's just the way I bet. That's Marseille. No, Marseille on the money line is a lean from Steve, and the SGP over half a goal for Marseille. Under 12.5 corners in the game, and Wahi have 1 shot or more on target. That is the SGP this week. Just one other lean, Steve, that you got in France for us. That's involving Montpellier away at Le Havre.
Yeah, Le Havre against Montpellier. I mean, you look at the form of both these teams, and the bet would have to be both teams to lose, wouldn't it? But
both teams to lose to 0.
But normally in these sort of games, it's one of my theory games where I'm thinking overs and goals because both are desperate and have to go for it. But because Montpellier have got a new manager, I think sometimes those managers like to go back to basics if they can. Le Havre are desperately struggling for confidence, so I couldn't take the goals with confidence. I'm going to have a nibble, and I mean a small nibble here, just on the money line for Montpellier, and I'm gambling that they can just improve in a further week with Jean-Louis Gasset in the training ground there. There's a lot of suspensions in this game. Thierry Savanier is ruled out, and Le Havre have got 2 suspensions. There's about 12 suspensions across the league, by the way, this weekend, so you might want to check that out if you're into your team news. But I just think Le Havre are awful. I mean, they're really bad. They're so limited, and they're void of any confidence whatsoever. Montpellier obviously have been pretty bad as well. But I just think there's potentially more in their tank with the players they have at their disposal. So it's a bit of a gamble, but that's why I wouldn't take them on a handicap or a DMB. I think on the money line at plus 220, I'm just sort of hoping that they can put him in a randomly good performance suddenly with a new manager syndrome. He's had longer to work with the players against a Le Havre side who are just totally devoid of anything.
Now, you may well have noticed that we haven't covered any games in La Liga in Spain this week. Obviously, devastation because of floods in the Valencia region has really impacted the nation, and there are days of mourning planned, of course, in Spain. 2 games have already been postponed. Obviously, Valencia against Real Madrid is not taking place, and Villarreal, just a little bit further north than Valencia, their game is also being called off. This is at the time of recording, Steve, so we've taken the decision not really to look at the La Liga action this weekend.
Yeah, I think, at the time of recording, we just don't know what's going to happen. Maybe the whole round could get postponed. We don't know. Also, this is a terrible event. Emotions are going to be running very, very high, and it can make matches very difficult in that aspect. One thing I will say, I am on the live show on Monday next week, so if the game is going ahead, I think it's Celta Vigo playing, I think, on Monday, or meant to be. I can discuss it on that show that weekend. But it's just this terrible chain of events, which betting almost becomes secondary, really, Dan. So let's just forget about it for 1 week, I think.
Yeah, agree with that. Steve, James, thanks for your company. Good luck to one and all. We'll keep everybody up to date, of course, via our X feeds. The boys have been in profit this season. Obviously, a challenging week last week, but we are still looking good for the season so far. And that is a wrap for Betting Weekly Extra Time European show. We'll be back next week, of course. Picks, plays, hot dogs, and so on. We've got our live show as well, 11 a.m. Eastern, every midweek day. You can follow us at Because We Win. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube as well. If you're just stumbling across our channel for the first time, give us a like and a subscribe. It helps the algorithms and so on. From myself and from Steve and James. So that is your lot. We will speak again next week.